Powered by the Montana Television Network. This is the 530 News on Q2, Montana's news leader.
Good evening and thanks for joining us a bit early tonight. I'm Jay Cohn.
And I'm Jeanelle Slade. A wind-driven fire in South Billings destroys 3 barns and kills 2 horses. That
fire broke out last night just around 7:30. It scorched some 3 acres of brush and trees in addition to the barns.
The fire likely due to an electrical problem. Now that finding reported today by the Yellowstone County Sheriff's Office.
There were 15 horses that were in the barn and corrals. 2 of the horses were killed at a barn south of the I-90 frontage road. This map shows the general location of the fire south of the I-90 frontage road, located between the interstate and the Yellowstone River. Now, Thursday morning, the fire was still burning as Billings Fire Department and DNRC crews worked through the night.
The fire also burned 3 outbuildings but did not damage the main home on the property. The property was not insured. The fire caused an estimated $8,000 in damage.
The Billings man who fatally shot his friend in 2015 will be spending time behind bars despite a plea agreement sparing him from prison.
64-year-old Jose Cobos was sentenced in Yellowstone County District Court just 1 hour ago to 10 years at the Montana State Prison. Q2's Aysia was there and joins us now with the details. Aysia.
Jay and Jeanelle, prosecutors agreed to sentence Jose Cobos to Veterans Treatment Court instead of prison, but the judge had other plans. Cobos pleaded guilty to negligent homicide for the death of 52-year-old Mark Kirby in October of 2015. But today, when asked what happened that night, Cobos claimed he could not remember. Cobos served in the Vietnam War, and prosecutors agreed his PTSD was a mitigating factor in his actions. Cobos initially claimed he acted in self-defense when he shot his friend, but later said he couldn't remember what happened that night. Kirby's family testified that he was a great father and community man who also served his country. Judge Mary Jane Nisley said such a great life was lost and it can't go unpunished.
The loss of a very decent human life here is simply immeasurable and something we can never restore. And it's difficult as a criminal justice system to ever put a price on a human life. But Mark Kirby was an exceptional man, an exceptional family man, and a valued friend to so many in the community, and his loss is deeply felt.
Still no motive has been given for that shooting. After Cobos is released, he'll be on supervision for an additional 10 years. Cobos turns 65 tomorrow. Jay and Jeanelle.
All right, thank you, Aysia.
A Busby woman will spend less than a decade behind bars for a drunk driving crash that killed 2 young boys last year.
24-year-old Aysia Littleson was sentenced in Billings District Court to 6 years in prison on 2 counts of involuntary manslaughter and assault. Littleson's blood alcohol content more than 4 times the legal driving limit when she got behind the wheel.
At 80 miles per hour, Littleson crashed into a stopped vehicle on Highway 212 containing 4 children. 14-year-old Stephen Bearchum and James Walker died in the crash. A 3rd child was seriously injured.
Defense attorneys say that Littleson became a heavy drinker to cope with the loss of her boyfriend, who also died in a drunk driving crash.
In other news tonight, at the White House today, President Trump delivered a speech about the deadliest drug crisis in U.S. history and what his administration is doing to stop it. Mola Lenghi reports from Washington on what it means for the country.
President Trump said what communities all across the nation already know, that the opioid crisis is a public health emergency.
We can be the generation that ends the opioid epidemic.
The declaration does not release any new money to address the drug epidemic, which has been fueled by highly addictive painkillers flooding the market. But it does shift some federal money to help addicts, and the president is cracking down on at least one of the most problematic drugs.
We are requiring that a specific opioid, which is truly evil, be taken off the market.
What the president did not do was call the drug epidemic a national emergency, which would have allowed for additional funding. House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi says the president's statement falls short.
The president's statement are words without the money.
In West Virginia, the hope dealers aren't waiting for the government. In the state with the highest overdose rate, 4 women who have been touched by addiction are taking matters into their own hands, reaching out to addicts like Tiffany Arredondo, who lost everything to heroin.
The Sunday that I wanted to get help, January 7th, they actually chased me down the whole day. Went to my dealer's house, yeah.
The Hope dealers helped get her clean, but many others are not so lucky. More than 170 Americans die each day from drug overdoses. Mola Lenghi, CBS News, the White House.
And President Trump's opioid commission had recommended the president declare a national emergency to free up money and resources.
Within the next month, the state of Montana needs to cut $200 million out of the state budget. But how to get there, it still remains an issue. By law, the governor must deliver a balanced budget by the end of November. Republicans maintain the state needs to cut spending, but Governor Steve Bullock favors a mix of spending cuts and tax increases. Lieutenant Governor Mike Cooney feels a solution could be worked out in a special session of the legislature.
You have enough people who would be willing to come and have at least the appetite to have this discussion where we might be able to move forward to come up with some additional revenues. And I think we're making progress in that area, but I don't think we're quite there yet. What we don't want to do is call a special session and have nothing happen.
One of the problems, $74 million in firefighting costs this summer, which took a big chunk out of the budget, about twice the amount that was budgeted for.
Billings business leaders are mapping out the next 20 years with a new strategy.
More than 160 of them gathered last night at the Billings Depot to discuss what priorities should move the city forward. This strategic planning comes at a crucial time for the Magic City, with the city elections looming in November. Now, the city's last strategic plan was developed before the turn of the century.
The new ideas discussed last night ran the gamut from enhancing the downtown nightlife to Native American needs, all in hopes of providing a better vision for the future.
I think you can see some things happening as soon as tomorrow. If you look at issues like Native American inclusion, there's already been talk while we've been here of 3 or 4 things that can be done in the next week or two to help move that issue forward. So things are already underway. Billings is not starting from scratch or with a blank slate. You've accomplished a lot. This will help keep that momentum going.
And Q2's Dustin Kleeman was at that strategy session last night. Dustin, what is your take on the meeting?
So what you saw last night was essentially what was done 20 years ago. They made this roadmap for downtown Billings. This brings that roadmap back again, something that they can kind of look at and say, what do we want for our community? And it's a different way of doing it. They've done this, the guy that just spoke, Tom, he's done this throughout different communities all across the United States. They say that this works, and this is a way to make sure that people have an idea, a vision, that it's executed correctly and fruitfully. So tonight, be sure to tune in. I don't want to tout it too much, but it's a very fun story about where we've been and how that involves where we're going. And I gotta say, there's some great archival footage that we found throughout the basement of Q2, so that's going to be worth it alone.
Look forward to it.
All right.
Thanks, Dustin.
Thanks, Dustin. Thousands of documents regarding the assassination of President John F. Kennedy were to be released today by the National Archives.
But a last-minute hang-up delayed the much-anticipated release of those documents, and it now appears only 2,800 out of some 35,000 documents will be released as national security agencies scramble to redact some of the most sensitive information. So the question is, what's in the material? I spoke this week with best-selling author Phil Sheehan, who has spent much of his career researching and writing about the Kennedy assassination. He told me he's most interested in finding out more on why assassin Lee Harvey Oswald met with Cuban and Russian agents in Mexico just 2 weeks before the president was killed.
Well, that's the material in these documents that's of most interest to me. You know, to my mind, there is this whole mysterious chapter of the Kennedy assassination story, which involves Mexico City. Oswald went there just a few weeks before the assassination. And we know that Oswald, who was an avowed Marxist, met with Cuban spies and Russian spies and other people who at the height of the Cold War might have wanted to see Kennedy dead. And it's very clear the CIA knew much more about that trip than it ever wanted to let on.
And you believe we might shed some light on that with these thousands of documents, perhaps?
Absolutely. I think, you know, there's reason to believe that the CIA, which had Oswald under aggressive surveillance in Mexico City, knew about the possibility that Oswald was planning to kill the president.
Coming up tonight at 10, we'll hear more from author Phil Sheehan and why the government's handling of the Kennedy assassination was such a turning point in U.S. history.
A Montana couple in Oregon for a gem and mineral show had somewhere between $300,000 and $500,000 in gems stolen from their car. The crime caught on surveillance. Randy and Katie Knighting own Montana Gems in Columbus, which specializes in Yogo sapphires. Investigators say a couple weeks ago, the Knightings left the Portland Gem Show around dinner time. While they were inside a nearby McDonald's, a suspect stole the gems from their vehicle. Now, Randy Knighting says he believes someone was scouting them out at the show because they knew exactly where the gems were stored in their vehicle.
One man is dead and 2 others hospitalized following a rollover crash that happened south of Hardin. It happened Wednesday afternoon on the Crow Reservation. The Montana Highway Patrol reports an SUV was traveling too fast on a gravel road when it left the roadway and rolled several times, ejecting 2 of the occupants. One of those ejected, a man, was killed. MHP believes he was the driver of the car. A man and a woman were also hospitalized. All 3 people involved are members of the Crow tribe.
Still to come on tonight's early news here on Q2, the fate of thousands of wild horses in limbo. Find out why as we head to Utah after the break.
And later in sports, state soccer underway for AA teams. Scott shows us which Billings schools make it into tomorrow's semifinals.
And coming up in weather, our cold front has come and gone, but now with clearing skies, it's going to really get cold tonight. Wait till you see our temps drop into the 20s. That's right. And then coming up next week, well, how about a little wintry mix of rain mixing with snow? We'll have more of that coming your way in a few more minutes.
You're watching MTN News with Jay Cohn and Jeanelle Slade. Storm Tracker weather with Bob McGuire and sports with Scott Green. This is the 5:30 news on Q2, Montana's news leader.